So for the chair, I can say stays.
All right, welcome everybody. This officially is a building committee meeting, our permanent building committee. Myself, Chris McGann, I'm the chairman of the committee. We got Mike Warren, Chris Magliosi, Larry Crosman, Steve Meyer, and Michael Ward. As members of the committee, we're missing one of our members, but welcome everyone here today. The basic idea today is just to kind of get the public involved with the project that we're working on and kind of educate people on what's happening. Just as a little bit of history, the library trustees, applied for construction grant. Really, right now, it's a design grant from the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and they were successful and got the grant. So we're in the planning and design phase of that grant. Basically, what this phase entails is choosing where we're going to be building, what we're going to be building, without getting into a full design until after the library commission comes back and kind of signs off and says what we're looking for is acceptable to them. So as part of the process, we had to hire a owner's project manager, or an OPM, the owner's project manager, which is Dan Pilata from P3. We went out to bid the 11th most qualified firm, and so far we're very happy with their work. After that, we went back out to bid and we hired Johnson Roberts, up on the screen here, and they are actually the architects on the project. And they're kind of walking us through the whole program and making sure we're complying with library commissions, make sure we get the money that we, as much as we can get back from the library. Generally speaking, there's no magic formula to it, but it's pretty much 50%. So the town will pay about 50%, the library, state will pay about 50%. So it's a pretty good deal if we can work our way through through all the intricacies. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over. I'll turn it over, I think, to Dan. Are you gonna say a few words?
I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program, Mr. Chairman. As he indicated with the project management of the project, you are in the design phase of the MBLC program. During the design phase, we looked at two solutions: an addition renovation to the existing library and a new library. We're going to present both of those options to you tonight. The grant process for the library programs a lot lighter than the grant process for the school project. We are required to go just a little bit beyond what we call programmatic design. We are required to do certain things to make sure that the building can work, such as borings and surveys and things like that, zoning calculations. And we are required to get an estimate on the final decision that the community makes. So once that is, this application process ends in December, and we submit our grant application to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, they will review it and send back a few comments. We'll correct the comments or dispel the comments, and then we expect to have an estimate in hand in February. Of course, that's where the rubber meets the road. Everyone always wants to know what's going to cost. So we will be doing a quantitative estimate on the final decision that you make. The program for libraries, Clinton is very lucky. Only 4 libraries in the Commonwealth in your group of libraries, meaning a mid-sized library, were selected for the grant round this time. In years past, all you had to do was sign up and you got put on the list. And 5 or 6 years later, your Powerball came up. This time they're doing it a little different. You finish your planning grant, you immediately go to construction. So we'll present the findings as we're going along, and then we'll come back to the town with the findings when we submit our application. It's a process that we want participation. If you see something you like, reach out. If you see something you don't like, reach out. We do want input. We don't want to be doing this in a vacuum. Based on the number of people we have here tonight, I can see Clinton is a very active community, and that's awesome. So you love the library. You don't want to spend any money on the library one way or the other. You want to get your voice heard. That's great. So that being said, the design is gonna go through, the beginnings of the process of where we are. And we're almost at the point where we need to make a fork in the road and decide whether to do an addition renovation to the Bigelow Library, which is a really small site, or whether to build one up the street, on Chestnut Street. So you'll be able to tell for yourselves which ones you like, what you like about them, not like about them, we want to hear from you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I've heard before that I start out loud, but then I taper off a little bit, maybe my voice wears out. If you can't hear me in the back after a couple minutes, just raise your hand. I'll speak up a little bit. Again, my name is Phil O'Brien with Johnson Roberts. Johnson Roberts is a small to middle-sized firm. We've been around about 30 years. I've been there about 30 years. Prior to that, I worked for another 7 years, as did both of my partners, at another firm in Boston, doing more libraries. So we've been doing lots and lots of libraries. I feel like Johnson Roberts understands how libraries go together. What we are interested in is what works for your library, and what works for your community. For every community we've gone and worked in, how they see their public library, what they want from their public library is always a little bit different. We're not a design firm that's going to come in and say, here's the perfect solution. We want to help build that perfect solution together with you. So that's part of the reason we're having meetings like this. We want to reach out, we really do want to hear what we think, and try to get you a great library. So where we are in the design phase, as Dan mentioned, we're very early in the design, schematic design phase. The Board of Library Commissioners actually doesn't even want us to finish schematic design. They want us to get to about 75% of schematic design. So, and we're in the beginning parts of that now. We actually haven't started to design a building yet. We're still looking at 2 different sites. We need to make a decision which site we're gonna go on so that we can design a building that sits on that site. Once we make that decision, we're not gonna be able to go back. We need to make that decision so that we can go forward, and we need to get this building designed at least 75% schematic design by December so we can get it turned in. So that's kind of prior to us or the OPM being hired. The library put together a library building program, which lists all the different areas that are required, how many books, how many seats, how many computers, and that was submitted to the Board of Library Commissioners as part of their application. That's fixed. We have to design a building that meets that program. Our responsibility with the program is to kind of go through and double check, make sure everything works out good. Everything works out pretty good. So we didn't change it very much. We tweaked a few little things so that we could make sure that we fit everything in there. And then we use that program to take a look at how we can fit a library building that works on both of the sites that we would live in. That's going to go through today. And then we've also begun to work at how do you make the decision between one site and the other. We can certainly make a recommendation. The OPM can make a recommendation. We want to hear from you what you think. But as part of that decision-making process, we've been working together now for a couple of weeks. All the site selection matrix, we have a series of criteria together so you can score them. I'm going to show you that at the end, so of course we take a look at it. So I'm going to walk through these things pretty quickly. I'm happy through the chair to take whatever questions you would like.
Yeah, I'd go through the program, I think, and you can save all the questions at the end.
I put a little agenda together. Oh, sure.
And then we can
Sure.
mark.
The point is-
There's chairs down the hallway for whether you think you want to stay, and, I can get them. It's hard to sign.
Phil.
There's a seat in the front row that's a roll up.
That's all. It's all right.
Just the white almost shade there on the side.
It's like I had this.
I can do this. It was his room. I just think it's just me.
Yeah.
Priority.
No. All right, I think we're good.
All right. So I put together a little agenda just to kind of keep myself on track, but I'm gonna touch on the two sites for those of you who don't know. One's on Walnut Street, the existing building, right across the way. The other one's on Chestnut, right on the other block. And then there's that site comparison matrix that I want to talk about. Now, I say Walnut Street and Chestnut Street plan diagrams. Now, I told you I haven't started designing the building yet. What we've done is we've taken that program that I told you about. It has all the different areas on them. And we kind of put them together. Preliminary, what do you call it, a program plan diagram, I guess you could call it, to see what will fit and what the implications are. And we've worked through those things to try to come up with a building that works and try to identify what the problems are and what the benefits are of each of the two sites. So these are what I call test fits. They aren't real building designs. So if you were to ask me, what kind of mechanical system are you going to have? I don't really know that yet. We haven't started to design a building. But I could talk to you a little bit about why this is next to that, or maybe it should be on a different floor. I'm happy to talk about things like that. But there is still more design to come, so there's the potential for that. So the two sites that we're looking at, this is an aerial photograph. We got the existing site. Here we are in this building here. There's your town hall. There's the common. There's the existing library. The other site is right across the way. You jump in here, that's the Verizon building. Okay, senior center is over there. So you take a look at these two sites in plan. You can see obviously the Chestnut Street's a little bit larger. Here's the existing building. All the existing buildings are shown in white. We're showing potential additions or new buildings in yellow in this plan. So the existing site, Walnut Street, this is what we'd need to do in order to get all the program to fit on that site. The existing building here sits in the front. It's a 3-story existing building. That's 2 floors in the basement and 3 levels. And then we're looking at a 3-level addition. Each of the floors would line up with the existing building. So we'd line up with the basement, line up with the 2 upper floors. 3-story building. You can see it's about the same size as your existing building. You're basically doubling it a little bit more. In order to get in, because there's a big set of steps that come up the front, we basically need to scoop out some of the grade on Church Street on the side road and walk right into your basement. We're looking at that for both options. We have 2 options for Walnut Street and 2 options over at Chestnut. The second option is instead of doing a straight 3-story addition, we've broken it down. We've got a little section that's 1-story, a little section that's 2-story, and another section that's 3-story. This helps us to break the scale of the building down a little bit more, but it also helps us to be a little bit more efficient. And as I walk through the first scheme, I can show you what the issues are and kind of point out what goes where. Over on Chestnut Street, we're looking at a 2-story building. The site slopes up from Chestnut Street up to the rear. It's pretty even. Folks that drive up Church Street alongside in between the Verizon building and the senior center know that there's a shallow grade that just kind of crawls right up that hill. That's the natural grade. We're just down the road. It's just a couple of doors down from us. It's pretty much that same grade. So that same grade runs front to back. So we're looking at a 2-story building closer to the front. Verizon building is down here. The other neighbor is opposite. And then we're looking at 59 parking spaces. 59 parking spaces is what the Board of Library Commissioners recommends. You don't really have a library specifically in your zoning bylaw. The closest thing is institutional, educational, it's for schools. That comes up to 70. So we looked at whether or not 70 would fit. And you could put 70 on there, it just eats up a little bit more of your green space. But you could still do a 2-story building in 70 spaces if we need to. To be clear, you can't get any parking on the existing site with the addition. We'd be taking down that little addition on the back that has the elevator and the entrance in it and taking out the park. So we're going to look at these Walnut Street plan diagrams a little bit more. So there's the site. We cut a slice through the building right here so you can see it. There's a little bit of grade on the site. If you've gone down, Church Street kind of drops down as you go along. You look up to the right, as you go by, you can see that the parking and everything is up at a higher level in order to get into that addition. So we need to scoop out some of the soil to get down into that lower level. Those of you that have been in the lower level know that if you're in that meeting room down there, you have to go up a couple of steps to get out to the sidewalk level, and then it actually slopes down to the sidewalk. So we'd scoop that out so you could walk straight out. So this is like a slice through the building right there. It's like a layer cake. Basement floor, first floor, second floor, 3 levels. We'd be coming in basically right into the basement level from Church Street. It's very simplified view, but that's kind of what we're looking at. This building is a little bit bigger than what's called for in the program, at 22,860. The program calls for about 20,500. So this is a bit larger. And the reason is because it's inefficient. We've got an extra floor of stairs and elevators in there. And we just can't fit everything that we need to into the existing buildings. So more of it ends up squeezing out into the addition in order to get everything to fit. So this is the one that's got the addition that's pretty much the same footprint as the existing building, just kind of tucked out the back. Basement level, first and second, or 0 to 1 and 2. However you think to call. So to make a decision before we build an elevator. Okay, so the first floor. Come right in off of Church Street. The meeting room is right there. Got a couple of toilets, a little storage room, and a kitchenette that goes with the meeting room. The inside doors can be locked, and that whole thing can be used as a suite of rooms after hours. So the rest of the library can be closed, the HVAC can be shut back for the night. You have little suite of rooms that you can get into and you can use in the evening. All 4 schemes I'm going to show you, and then whatever building we end up designing, that's the idea, is that we have a nighttime zone with some meeting spaces. In some cases, some of the plans, we can actually get some more of the meeting spaces into that nighttime zone. Can't really fit them in here. You walk in, circulation desk tucked into the basement of the actual building, workroom, lobby, browsing area, stairs and elevator that go up, and a couple of small rooms like the local history room is down here, and the Friends book sale room. Local history, not a great spot for it, doesn't fit upstairs, don't have a lot of room. Got some adjacent issues with this plan that I think the next plan helps to solve a little bit. You take the stairs from the elevator at the rear up 1 floor. That's going to put you at the same floor on the main floor when you come in. If you would come up the stairs, that's that floor right there. Taking advantage of the existing building for fiction stacks along the 2 stack rooms on either side, some seating in the middle, and then reusing some of the spaces in the corners for quiet study rooms and other things like that. Try to take advantage of those nice old spaces you have, especially on that main floor of the existing building, for nice places to read and so forth. Nonfiction in the new addition, we've got a reference desk out here. Program doesn't call for a reference desk, but because we're on a separate floor than the circulation desk, you need a staff position. The teens area is here, shown in orange, kind of looking out over the street. We got a couple of toilets in there, an outdoor storage room, green spaces or study rooms. Purple is computers. Get up to the upper floor, the yellow is children's. So the children's is mainly in the new addition. Some of those spaces spill down into what's the children's department right now. And then on those kind of flanking spaces on either side, we've got a workroom that's associated with the children's desk. The director's office is here. There's some storage for children. The maker space is up here. It's kind of a destination, not necessarily just for children. So it's a little tricky up here because you need to come up the old stair or you need to come through children's if you're taking the elevator. And then there's a staff room. So after looking at this one, we looked at this second scheme where we broke the building down a little bit. There's a little bit more room on the lowest floor, a little bit less room on the second floor, and then the third floor is actually the smallest. But that helps us in a couple of ways to help solve some of the adjacent problems. They don't all go away, but I think we do a little bit better with this one. Again, when you come in on the ground floor, directly in from church, there's the main entrance right there. You close down these doors, and again, you have a nighttime suite with the meeting room in it. Kitchen, toilets, storage, circulation desk now is in the new addition.
Got to set up in the
The
park.
browsing collections are right in the center of the plans. There's an elevator on the outside wall. The Friends book sale room is here. The workroom for the desk right behind the desk. In the basement of the existing building, you've got a couple of study rooms, local history, maker space. The space I should have pointed over here on the far right on the lower floor is unexcavated. There's no floor in there right now. It's a crawl space. You get up to the the middle floor. Again, teens, so in this front section, there's an opportunity because we have a one floor section in this area right here. There's potential for a balcony where you could take advantage of some outdoor space. We don't have a lot of outdoor space, site space left on the building, on this site. And so there's an opportunity here where you could create a balcony, for example, to get out over the roof of the entrance. Again, there's a reference desk, fiction in the existing building, non-fiction in the addition, toilets, director's office comes down from the third floor of this space, and then the computers are down here as well. Again, some small study rooms and so forth in the corners of the original building. But this smallest third floor now houses the children's department. And you can see other than this red area, which is that existing gallery space here, we'd like to kind of keep the way it is. It's just children's up here. So if you come up the stairs in the elevator, you're really coming up here for children's. And everything fits on one floor. You don't have to move things up here that don't necessarily work great. So we've also got 2 plans on Chestnut Street. My voice doing okay back there? Great.
Good.
Excuse me.
Just before you move on to Chestnut Street, can you just go over the ad rental square footage for both options?
Okay, so this one is a little bit bigger than the first one I showed you, with 100
Yeah.
square feet or something. It's just a little bit bigger, because of the inefficiency of building on 3 floors. And basically, when you have these programmatic spaces, right, I've got a certain amount of square footage. And if I'm building a new someplace, I could build it to the exact square footage that I need. With an existing building, I need to find a room that's close and put it in there. And sometimes it's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. I can't really put it in something that's smaller than it needs to be. So I end up giving space a little bit more. But then I've got all these columns and walls and so forth that I can't move. If I could build one big fiction room, put all the books in it, it's just gonna lay out a little bit more efficient. I won't have as much circulation space. So it's things like that that kind of.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm just looking for the actual square footage.
Yeah,
Yep.
just the numbers. If you gave them the square foot numbers,
So for
Without-
option 1, it looks like 12,710 would be the
addition.
square footage for the additional. And then just for the other one, for the option 2 that you have.
Those two.
So 12,600 will be the addition.
Yeah, so it's.
Perfect. Thank you.
The difference really is the adjacencies in the section work out a little bit better.
Perfect.
Okay, so we cut a section through this one too. 1 story, 2 story, 3 stories, and that section there, kind of like a layer cake. You can kind of see it as an opportunity where you could potentially walk out onto these lower roofs from the upper floors if you decided that you wanted to do that.
I have a question. For the Walnut Street option, how would you, when you build the new part on, how would you meld it with the original building? Would it be style the same, like brick and mortar as well? Would it be like metal and glass? Like, how do you blend those 2 spaces?
Maybe that second one. But that's really up to you, because we haven't started to design the building yet. We haven't really had that conversation. My default for a building like that would be that I'm not gonna try to compete with it, because it's such a beautiful old building. But one of my first suggestions is that we do something sympathetic to what is there, so it looks like it belongs. I know there are some designers that will say, let's do something that represents today or the future and put some kind of crazy glass and steel thing on there. I'm happy to do that if that's what the town wants. But that was not my first impression. But we haven't really got to that point. We're gonna have additional meetings where we talk about things like that, and I would love for you to come and ask that question then. And you can see how we're doing, once we get to that.
Bill, there's 59 parking spaces in the Chestnut Street. How many are there here?
There's none,
None. Just on the outside.
How many are there now?
on site right now, just
Right now there's 6.
6 spaces.
Thank you.
So into the Chestnut Street site, we cut a long section through here. So again, we slice the whole site like a cake. That's it right there. You can see the dotted line is the natural grade that kind of creeps up there. So we need to do some regrading on here. The idea is we put a two-story building in. You'd be able to get into the lower level directly from Chestnut Street. You drive up around the back and you'd be able to get right into the upper floor from the rear. So depending on where you wanted to park, you could get into one side or other of the building. Now, we looked at two different options for the building. One has an entrance that comes in at grade on the front. The other one has an entrance that comes in at the back, like I just mentioned. The other one that we looked at actually comes up about halfway and enters into the building on the side. Split level. So the first option is split level. Helps with a couple of different things in the building. I'll kind of point that out as we go. But it does kind of leave the main street without an entrance specific. So this is the lower level. So you come in from the side, basically at grade, walk or roll right into the front door, and you'd end up on this large landing, basically of a stair. Come in at the mid-level, and then you can either go up half the floor or down half the floor to each of the floors. So you'll be able to see where you want to go, you'll be able to see the desks, you'll be able to see who's sitting down there. So down at the lower level, circulation desk is looking right at the entrance, so you can see who's coming and going. You could also wheel right into the elevator and come down half a level or go up half a level. So if you come into this mid-level wheelchair or a walker, a stroller, you'd still be able to hop right in the elevator and get to where you're going. In this plan, this gray section around the rear is kind of tucked into the grade. Okay? Because we have to vary a portion of the building so that we can get into the upper floor at the back. So we've taken spaces like toilets, mechanical spaces, storage rooms, and so forth, and put those towards the rear. This is not going to be any windows back there. And as the grade starts to drop down on the side, we can get some high windows in places like we're showing here. And once you get down about halfway down, start putting in regular size windows. And of course, it's full height here in front. So teens areas in the orange, the browsing collections and so forth, right in the lobby, computers down here, a couple of study spaces, circulation desk with the workroom is there, storage spaces associated with the work desk, friends book sales happens right there, toilets and mechanical spaces, electrical spaces, janitor's closets are on the upper right-hand side. And then we've got the fiction and nonfiction collections down in here. The director's office, group studies of these pale green colors. Pretty much easy to find whatever you're looking for when you come in that floor. Now you take that half level up. Sorry. Or you come in directly from the back and you land on this upper floor. So there's the stair, it comes in. Is it a door that comes in from the rear? Now in this case, we're closing down right past the toilets and that nighttime zone, and this one's a little bit larger. We've got the meeting room in there. We've also got the maker space in there. So both of those rooms would be available after hours when the rest of the library is secure. Depending on what you want to do, you could get into either one of those rooms after hours while the rest of the library is locked up. You can still get into the toilets. You can get into the storage rooms. The elevator and the stairs would be locked up. This floor also has children's desk, and the children's workroom is here. Program room for children's, a study room, family toilet. There's a nursing room in here. And then we've got books for the older kids, books for the younger kids closer to the desk. And then you get out to the main lobby. And if you're coming in with a stroller, for example, you parked in the back, you'd be able to wheel right up. Second scheme we're looking at has an entrance in the front and the rear. So we're coming in off Chestnut Street. And again, off the back, here's a section. The plans are not absolutely balanced in this one. The upper floor is actually a little bit larger. Both of these plans meet the program, 20,500 square feet, essentially the same. So on the lower floor, coming in off the street, there's that nighttime zone. Nighttime zone could be expanded if we locked off the stair and the elevator to get to the makerspace. Right now, we're showing the option of having an nighttime lobby with the meeting room, kitchenette, and storage in that zone, along with the toilets. There's a glass wall here looking into children's desk and workroom is there. And again, all the children's books, computers, play spaces, storage spaces, program room, all happens down on this level. Stairs and the elevator are on the outside wall here. Access to grade directly from the children's department here. If there's a patio out here or a garden or both, they can get directly outside. Coming up the stairs in the elevator from the lower level or coming in directly from the back. Circulation desk pretty much sits in the center of the plan with the workroom, director's office right behind it. The teens are right in the corner there, so they don't have to come through the whole library in order to get to their department. We've got fiction and nonfiction collections. Local history, there's a break room in here, quiet study rooms, computer study rooms, the computers are here. The browsing collection pretty much near the front. Try and make it easy to find everything. So those are options. Yeah.
Between the four of them, how big is the meeting rooms?
They all meet the program, so the meeting room is the same size and all.
And what about, study space or number?
I don't remember all those numbers offhand. We have 12 computers or something.
I think I can.
10.
But it would say, sir,
Yes, so each of these buildings meets the, so each of the square footages, we may have broken them up differently or separated them in some cases, but each of them has the same number of books, seats, computers, area, all that stuff is in there. Now, I need to make the overall size of the building, so that's net area. So all the net requirements are in there. The gross of the existing renovation and addition buildings, the gross is a little bit larger because of the inefficiency. But all the net minimums are met in all four of these.
so the usable space in all four options is roughly the same.
That's right.
As far as renovating the current building, because of the architecture, the age, the wiring, all of that, and this was brought up in one of the other meetings today, and how long would the library have to move back in order to get this to happen?
Oh, yeah. Okay. You think? Okay, your OPM thinks 20 months. I was gonna guess 18. So they haven't really done that analysis yet, it's a little early. But it's probably somewhere in between there.
So we're talking 18 to 24 months.
18 to 20 is the word. 18 to 20 months, probably. You wouldn't be able to stay there for what we're thinking of doing. Yeah.
With multiple entrances, exits, and levels, what's the staff number?
That's probably a better question for Marie.
So we have currently a full-time equivalent of 5.7. We have 8 people for our part-time. And we could easily staff a 2-floor library. It would be a little bit more difficult to staff. The staff.
Mr. Chair, so you're done?
The only thing I have left is a site selection matrix.
Let's ask questions now. I think it'd be better time to do questions now. So
Questions.
for sure.
You might be able to help with this, Steve. The middle school, I think we recorded 74% reimbursement originally, and it turned out to be quite less than that. We're expecting a similar discount with this if certain footage doesn't match program requirements?
If it's a different funding formula, this is not like the MSBA. The ineligibles on this furniture. Pavement, although not grading for pavement and not stormwater, landscaping. Those are all ineligible costs. They then take the total construction cost, there's a couple other small ones, but they then take the total construction costs, project costs, and for the first 5 million, you get 60%. For the next 5 million, you get 45%. For the next 10 million, you get 35%. For the balance, you get 30%. And then they multiply that total by what's called an EQV, which is some guys at MIT would figure out for each town, a giant formula. And you have a rather large one, so you're at 16.12. So then we get 16.12% on top of those numbers.
So we think 50 is accurate. Did you say 50%?
No, I didn't give you, I didn't.
I just threw out a
Okay.
rough 50, not
Yeah,
based
Let's not do
on.
that again.
So, when we come back with the estimate, we're gonna come back with the exact amount of grant we suspect you're gonna get.
Okay.
Unlike the MSBA, where it's a little bit different with the MSBA, they're eligible and ineligible, works not only on square footage, it doesn't work that way with the MPLC. So here it works on specific items.
So we still don't know the reimbursement.
I can get it for you.
No, that's
An estimate if you want, but to do that, I'd have to take a stab at what
Yep.
the total cost of the project.
Sorry, I
is. We
wrote
don't
down
know.
50. That's my bad. Second one, is that 59 parking? We're stuck with that no matter what. Is there any local thing we can get around that?
If we wanted less parking, we'd probably have to go for a variance from, I would guess. The
Is that local or?
landlords.
The 59 comes from Massachusetts Board of Library Complaints.
Yep.
It's registered with the state law, Massachusetts regulations, they govern them. And we went to 59, which comes from them, because the closest thing we found was institutional educational in your zoning bylaw. And so we suggested, and we've done this successfully in the
Yeah.
past, to defer to the state's requirement, rather than building 70 spaces to build 59. But we wanted to be able to show that you could fit the 70 on there.
Well, I want less. So like, could we get fewer?
I don't, if the library commission requires that, we'd have to ask for a waiver.
The Board of Library Commissioners wants your town to be satisfied with the amount that you can come up with, and you get approved. And so, if you want to do less, I would love that. I mean, right sizing the parking lot, I think is terrific. I don't think you want to do too few. But right sizing the parking lot, I would love to do. It's green, it's cheaper, it's more sustainable. It checks all the boxes.
Last question, this might be for the library trustees. If we go with the second one, what are we doing with the old building?
I'm sorry, could you?
What are you gonna do with the old building if we go with the new one?
May I first explain to everyone that it's actually the town's project, not the trustees, so we can have personal individual opinions. But what we are doing currently is, I'm the chair, I attend all the permanent building because them and you are the ones that will make the decision, not us. And the question always is, because I think that everyone here, we all love the building, don't we? I mean, the problem is it's not up to code and it's not meeting stuff. And this is a really, really tough choice. So to come back to your question, which I've not wandered too far from, the question that the trustees have for the decision makers, i.e. the Permanent Building Committee on this, is what plans does the town have for the existing building? I mean, we can argue on one level that building a new library will give the town the best library possible in terms of being a library. And then we get to the hard stuff, which I've just referred to. So our question is, what plans does the town have to repurpose this building, the Walnut Street building?
I guess what I'm telling you is for one at town meeting, someone's gonna ask, we're gonna stuck with an old building. We're stuck with another
Right.
old.
We're well aware
That's
of
going to
that,
cost a
yeah.
lot of money. So that's
It's-
a double whammy.
Right, but this is only my personal opinion, right? Because the current building was not built on the borrowing system, it was built on the Athenaeum system where people attended, asked for a book, someone got it, and it came down. The spaces are beautiful. And if you walk in there, you can see how people could actually work, say, the town hall, where there is a huge shortage of office space, if I understand it correctly. I may be wrong. But as we look at the town growing and as departments growing, there is a need for extra space. And in my humble opinion, if the town feels that the open Chestnut space is the better library, I believe, in my humble opinion, that this building can be converted and benefit the town in another way. And it should, there's no question, it shouldn't be knocked down.
I'm not saying that, not too far off the rails, but
But we would.
what would it take to bring it up to code? Sorry.
But we, the trustees, when that question comes up, we look to the what.
Well, we don't decide on
Doesn't seem like
what
anything in this thing
buildings
is called.
are used for.
Okay.
If somebody came to us and said, hey, we want to rebuild that building as a school building, as a town hall building, we would build it, but we don't decide what happens to.
I'm not gonna hold,
So can there be something sent around as part of this process to other departments saying, how crowded do you feel? Would you benefit from additional administrative space?
you said it's not up to code.
Oh,
I
right.
guess what I'm wondering is like, what's the add-on? Is this another 10, another 5? Well, I don't know holding it to you, but like,
Honestly, I don't know what you would need to do, because I don't know if you just said we're gonna move a few offices from town hall over there, I'm not so sure you'd have to do anything.
Right.
I mean, it would be, I guess the question would be, is it a change, would it be a change of use in the eyes of the planning board? Planning board, zoning board, that. So would it be a change of use if you just put municipal offices in municipal buildings? If it's not a change of use, probably don't have to do anything. So I'm just speculating because I'm not sure. I'm not the expert on that.
To be
But I would say if you're going to go in there and renovate the building, now you're gonna get it up to code, you could be looking, you know, 5 to 10, $5 to $8 million, I don't know.
right. I'm looking for a plan that we can sell. And if, frankly, if we don't have an answer to that question, it's going to be very tough to sell.
Yeah, we all, we're
Okay.
abundantly aware of that.
Yeah. Can we just briefly walk through like the process for everyone here as to like, you know, the next step, like in February we'll know, and we keep saying, you're gonna decide, you're gonna decide,
Well,
you're gonna decide, but like really
just-
the citizens decide, so just some key.
The next important step, which is decided by us, the building committee, is which plan to go. We're the ones who make that decision. And that's why we're here, because we're trying to get input, because this has to happen relatively. And we're torn because just as Gloria said, you know, that is gonna be a very difficult site to build up. There's literally, you know, we may end up having to close half of the street in either direction, which will be an absolute nightmare to be able to build on that site. But it's a beautiful
Just to
building.
clarify, are you referring to Walnut Street?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, this site is simple. That's a very difficult site to build on. There's just no room, like, when you think of it, when structural steel gets delivered, really, there is nowhere on the site to put it. It's not, anything it can be done without any question. It's gonna be a difficult site to build on. But none of us, including you, and anybody here wants a vacant building in town. We have one, we don't need another.
Another vacant.
That's the problem. That's a dilemma with this whole thing. I think the better option, a better library would be a brand new library. I've seen a lot of libraries, you know, traveling around, see libraries, a lot of them are additions on an old library, but they have sites that are more conducive to doing that. Just, put it in place. The other thing you gotta think about is we're gonna severely encroach upon the historical society. The holder. We're gonna be right up to with the new addition.
May I clarify one thing about up to code? I was referring to it being a public building versus a library, office space or something. It's when the public start using the building.
So your goal of the meeting is to kind of just start to gather feedback
Yeah,
as part of this.
feedback about what people think about each. And it's really, at this point, whether we go 1 or 2 down here or 1 or 2 up there, doesn't matter. It's really the site, which site, the decision on which, that's gonna be tweaked out as we go along and get further into the design, the exact shape of the building, so, none of these are gonna be defined as iteration of what these slope plans look like.
Yeah.
Bill?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, a couple of questions and maybe an observation. Going back to the parking on the Chestnut Street site, is there I understand what your explanation of why there's so many trying to get to the 70 and that, but is there a projected need for that amount of, are you gonna have 70 people even at max occupancy utilizing that building at one time? Do you
Well, it's
see
not
that?
70, it's 59.
50, but the number that you were trying to get to is 70, but do you see 59 people occupying that building have one simultaneously?
So this one's, Marie can,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, Phil.
Hi.
So, I work here in Lincoln. I live in Shrewsbury. I drove up here tonight because I work in this town, and I love this town, I work in this building. But, came through the center of Shrewsbury, which has a library that was a historic building with a new addition onto it, with a good-sized parking lot. And I can tell you that we had to stop in traffic because there was a traffic jam of people trying to get into and find a parking spot at that library. And that happens on a nightly basis. It happens all afternoon long because as soon as there's clean, modern meeting spaces, that library is booked up with just community groups and different meeting groups and whatever groups at all hours of the day. So it becomes more than just people using a library. It becomes a community center of sort. So, sorry to interject if that's inappropriate.
Did everybody walk tonight? Because there's gotta be 59 people in here right now. Somehow we found parking.
I'm not against parking. I think this town needs all the parking it can get, especially off-street parking. That lot will be half full by people living in the neighborhood. My question was, I'm trying to understand the anticipated use of the building. Do you have any input on going from the number of visits in a day at the current library? You're gonna quadruple that, double that? What's the
we
forecast?
have been told, for those of us who attend the webinars of the program, of the construction program, that you should on average expect double usage of your building
What's your
when you provide,
What's the current usage? Daily visits?
well, again, I mean, Marie would answer that, but we don't, it literally depends. I mean, you could go one day and there'd be nothing. You go on a Saturday, which now has extended hours. And, it's sort of like, and then you're trying to get into the library and there's the church on the opposite. So it's a real,
Okay, another question is regarding the team space that's located in all four scenarios. There's no furnishings, no book racks shown on those floor plans. What is when you say team space, is it a reading space? Is it a study space? Is it?
It's all of those things. I mean, the idea is to give them, they'll have their own book collections, they'll have their own material collections, there'll be AV materials in there. There'll be seats, computers, places to study, just like any other spot in the library.
You're not having a team center operating out of the
No,
corner of the library?
no, it's a library for teens.
It's not a basketball player.
Right.
With regard to your question on usage. When the building was built, obviously, it was a repository of books. Libraries today are no longer those repositories. Depending on how the programming is done and how the rooms are utilized, will determine the traffic flow of that building. When that meeting room is filled, that big meeting room is filled, and you have, other patrons in the building, the parking lot will fill. You might not get exactly the number, but it will fill. Everyone we've done, we go back 3-4 years later, 200%, is not unheard.
Well, the other thing about the parking is it's kind of premature. We put in 59 spaces, that's because that's what we can go ask for less. If we go in there and tell them we're putting in 20 spaces, they're gonna say absolutely not. You have to put in, if we go in and ask for 40 spaces, we might be able to get 40 spaces, but it's a little preliminary, it doesn't matter how many spaces there are. I think that is a big driver of the decision to be down here or up there. Which is kind of why we're here.
My last thing is an observation more than a question, and it's to the library board. As a builder, I understand the consequences of trying to renovate an old building, especially a historic building like that. It's catastrophic to your budget to try to renovate that building. And I understand the economies of building a brand new building to your specification. it's a lot more economical to build a brand new one than to try to put an addition and a renovation of an existing building. I understand that. But you can't say it's going to be the town's decision. If you opt for Chestnut Street, if that's the decision, there has to be a projection of what the cost of abandoning that building is to the community. The voters are going to have to understand that you're saving money by building on Chestnut Street, but what is it going to cost? Nobody's going to be able to just move into that building. Even if it's office space, they're not just going to paint the walls and utilize the existing spaces. That's not, no town department is going to be interested in doing that. Every time we try to move stuff around in this building and create more office space, there's issues that have to be dealt with, and they'll have to be dealt with in that building. And I think you're not being fair to yourselves if you go to town meeting with, we just want to build a good library and we don't care what happens with that building.
I think, Bill, you're directing that at
At
the
them.
wrong people.
I know.
Because they're library people. They're gonna, after the library's built, they're gonna either be in one place or the other, and the building's gonna become town property at that point. You know, we're the ones who have to make the decision, not them.
No, I understand the decision.
But
Chris.
then you guys are, depending on what we decide, you guys might be tasked with what happens with that building. That's.
But
you
the
know,
building
and
committee
we gotta
and this
sit-
board aren't selling this at town meeting. And town meeting wants to know what it's going to cost
Absolutely.
by walking away from that building. We've got a beautiful historic building, the old fire station, that's been sitting essentially unutilized because of the cost that's required to occupy that building. It's been sitting there for 50 years. And I hate this, and if, say hypothetically, the school department moved their administrative offices into the old library building. Besides the cost of that move, that means they're going to walk away from St. John's School.
Right.
It creates costs to the town, and that has to be identified for town meeting.
I can't agree more. And I think the bigger problem is that we are, as a town, and it's been this way since I've been on the board, we are all holding puzzle pieces. We don't realize that they all have to fit together. We only have how many square acres in this town, and we keep hopscotching over buildings that are going to be empty now. And these dominoes all hit each other without killing too many
I mean, we don't
analogies.
have
Like,
any buildings
so
in town. We don't have hopscotch in here, hopscotch in anything. We got one empty building in the town of Clinton.
and a building
It's
is
been there for a long time.
and the administrative building.
Could make the argument of two with the SEMA building.
SEMA building.
That you could make the argument on that.
You're right. It's but you are, but it's not, this isn't something like we're hopscotch, like the town has been doing this for years and years and years. Just, we had neighborhood schools are no longer the norm anywhere. So you're inevitably gonna have empty buildings if that's the case. So if you have a building that's outdated, doesn't work, I'm not saying that doesn't, I fully understand what you're saying, it's gonna be a hard sell. But if you have a building that's outdated or doesn't work, you gotta move on from it. Regardless, you can't just, so if it's gonna cost, and I'm not saying that it is, if it was gonna cost 3 times as much money to renovate that building as to go up there, you gotta take these things all into consideration.
May I
From my
respond?
perspective, Chris, I think, we're kind of like moving way ahead, saying, we're looking at one site or another site. But, we have a brand new middle school that we're building now. And, a lot of people in this town are gonna see increases, substantial increases in their taxes. And now you're talking about another project, and as to Bill, what Bill said, I think it's important that we get the facts on what are we talking about from a monetary standpoint. Because, potentially you could have 2 enormous projects going at the same time. And you have to look at the tax burden, particularly on senior citizens, who a lot are on fixed income. And I'm not saying that, a library isn't important. Of course it is. It's an essential thing. And you have to provide it for people, and it's used all the time. I'm just saying we have to look at it from a monetary perspective and the taxpayers.
So we're at a point You know, we're not at the point where, that's gonna be decided at town meeting. You know, they're gonna decide whether they wanna spend money on this building or not spend money. You know, what we're tasked with is the town voted to go through this process. So the town of Clinton voted to go through this process. We have to follow the library commission's rules on space and what's needed for space. Then we have to decide what's the best option in town to do that. So our function here as this board is not to say, can the town afford it? I mean, we gotta take that into consideration. But our first obligation is to get a library in the size and configuration that is needed for the town. That's what the library commissioners are paying, you know, telling us we're allowed to do. We have to make a library that works for our community. Then it's, you know, part of that is now to decide that spot or this spot. But the financial part of it, we will have hard numbers before we go to town meeting, so people are gonna know what they're voting for. Tonight, we have 2 sites, and I'll, you know, jump ahead a little bit. We've on very, very rough numbers based on square foot numbers of renovation versus additions, that site is gonna be in the realm of $750,000 more than this site up here. So it's about $750,000 more to build down here. We will get reimbursement on that, so town of Clinton money could be half or a little less than half of that. So it's more money, but order of magnitude, it's not enough money where you would say, all right, we're gonna risk the vote, because we understand that there's potential to risk losing the vote if we don't stay on the site. We fully understand that, and which is again why we're here. So, you know, why don't we open it up maybe to some people out here and see what they're feeling tonight? One more point from the board.
We can't give you hard numbers unless we make a decision on which site and do some more due diligence to come up with those numbers. So we'll go round and round and round if we don't focus on one or the other. That's kind of why we're here, try to figure out the direction so that we can get to those hard numbers. And I 100% agree, if we choose this site, we're gonna have to come up with some ideas and sell it. But to your point, that'll all be very clear well before town meeting and very clear in front of the taxpayers in Clinton, will then be able to see the numbers and make a decision. That's not for us to make that decision, it's for the taxpayers in Clinton.
We're not allowed to promote this vote at town meeting as a board. We're here just to try to make sure that the town makes our best educated decision on what's best for the town. But we're not gonna be promoting this and promoting, you know, they're the ones who have to promote the funding, you know?
May I just?
I hate to do this and be improper, but you have an open meeting for the public. I have seen a lot of hands up back here that have not gotten a chance to speak. As far as where on the financial point, we have this grant that we have been awarded that if we pass up on it, we won't get the chance to apply for another 8 to 10 years for this library grant again. And so if you have the public here raising hands, wanting to talk, the committees can make another appointment to meet privately to discuss all this stuff before their meeting. But you have let us have like 2 questions after.
We're gonna ask questions.
I've seen a lot of people walk out that door, and I think that your responsibility is to your public to let them ask you questions about the information that we have been presented.
All right.
That is
There it is. Could you just say your name and?
Patrick Roberts, I live on Flag Street. I really work with the Borough Library, I used to work in Clinton. I have 3 points I'll be ready to speak to her point over here. The parking is important at the library. The parking needs will fluctuate as the library programming and events change. So I have routinely been at the library and attended events that had between 25 and 50. Therefore, parking is important and it needs to be fluctuated through the day of the season around here. Second point, for every dollar a community spends on library, studies have shown that the return to the community is between $2 and $6 or $2 and $10, most commonly between $3 and $6 that the community gets back. So it's not like we're spending money and it's just, we get that back for the services that the library provides. And it's not words, but I like the idea of the Chestnut Street site because I think that blocking off the parking with Walnut, as you had said previously, sir, would be a disaster. Thank you. Oh, my third point, sorry. My third point is there's still stuff in that building now. That building could be repurposed easily for any other purpose. And it might take some time to get it where we could use it, where we could use it for a specific purpose. But there's staff in there now, they're working there now, which was
Yeah, in addition to the concerns with parking in the Chestnut Street site, I haven't heard any mention of pedestrian access. Now, there are no sidewalks on that side of Chestnut Street. Has there been a traffic study done on the impact on Chestnut Street, which already has its own traffic issues and road conditions?
There has not been a traffic study. We're not at that stage by any stretch. There would be sidewalks to the building for
From
sure.
both sides?
Well, at least from one side, we're this isn't an infrastructure project that we're not allowed to spend money well down the street of it, but we would be able to get sidewalks at least to one side of it. But it's not designed yet, so it's a little bit difficult on that road to get sidewalks on that side of the street because of the grade. It kind of comes up very abruptly, but our original discussion was to put some pedestrian access on that side of the street, so yes.
Okay, and members of the select board, I wanted to ask you, has there been any discussion of road work and sidewalk work on Chestnut Street? Because even the side that does have sidewalks, they're in very bad shape.
That's a separate meeting.
Well, I think it's in conjunction with planning a massive new building on the street that needs work already.
That's just one more.
Down the back.
I'm Greg, former president of Quincy, current patron of the Bigelow Public Library and a bunch of public libraries. I actually really enjoy public libraries. I go to them to do puzzles and do work when I don't have to be at the office. And I'm going to tell you that the Bigelow library space is very small. And if we try to renovate it, that's almost 2 years of not having a library in your town. Because where are they gonna go? What's your big plan there? That's 18 to 20 months already discussed. We're gonna have to shut that building down while we do the renovations, which means we've got kids missing 2 years of access to programming in their public library in this town. That is terrible. We already did this during the pandemic and it sucked. Teens use teen rooms. My teen goes to the library and they do research on for sped work. They meet other teens and play, Northborough does a video game night once a month for the teens, which is pretty great. Teen rooms allow teens to access the library in a safe space that isn't for the little kids and it isn't for the grown-ups. Teen rooms are wicked valuable when you're talking about accessing a library. And it's not a teen hangout space where they're gonna do teen stupid things. It's a place where they can do homework. It's a place where they can do communication with their friends if they don't have access to the internet. Libraries are where people who don't have jobs can go looking for jobs because they don't necessarily have internet access at home. Computers are there for the people who need to find work. Libraries are really key to your community.
We are all proponents of libraries in this building. Everybody is here because they love the library, they love everything about it. This site will have everything that this site will have, except parking. This is a beautiful building that we want to renovate. So as far as just, we're all here, the town has already voted to spend the money for this study and for the first phase of this. The next phase, again, we're gonna have to ask for more money, but regardless of what happens at this meeting, we are gonna move forward with either renovating that library or building that library with the same space. So really, I think our topic of discussion should be more on what site you like better, this site or this site. Because we're gonna have the space no matter what.
This one,
So let's talk about what site is better if we could, and that, you know, would be good. You don't have to, but I'm just requesting that. Go ahead. Yeah, you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Friedman. I was the consultant on this project for your grant. I know you're building really well. I've looked at all the spaces and all the dirt and all the holes and all the bad stuff and all the good stuff. Now, this is a town that renovates buildings really well. You have a whole bunch of mills that are renovated. You have a building that has fantastic ceilings. These are unique, wonderful West Avino ceilings. Did you ever look up at those ceilings? Well, somebody might buy that building. So don't worry about whether there's going to be a use for that building. Somebody's going to want that building. Go to Orange, see what they did with that old mansion. A lady bought it from California. She has events there. Old buildings for some people are golden. That building will find a use. Don't worry about it. But worry about whether a teenager that doesn't want to go home because he doesn't have a place to study, because it's too noisy, because he has 3 small siblings at home and no place to study. Give him a place to study. Do what you can for this community. Don't worry about the building. You'll find a place for it.
Thanks, Mike McGinnis. Great points that I love this. I love being part of this community. That being said, take advantage of the tour that Marie gives to the library. I can promise, if you take that tour, your decision's gonna be easy as to which way to go. And believe in it.
And you get to the building, it's a tour is online. Marie did it online, right?
No, she's done them in person too.
No, but.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
You can't get to the physical tour. Something's.
One question I've been following.
My name's Mary Laurel and I'm a resident of Clinton, but I was the former director of the library in Princeton. And we did a renovation of the library there, and it's gorgeous. And everybody comes in, it's a beautiful historic building and they love it, they want tours. But it doesn't really work as a 21st century library. The space, they use the same footprint, you know, for the library. And it's much too restrictive on space, on access. We have just a few parking spaces. And when you have a good program going on, maybe for adults and a good program for children at the same time, you could easily have 59 parking spaces, you know? So it's just from my experience there, it was done, the building was renovated and it has its good points, but very lacking in the majority of ways.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I live in Ridgefield, and I just want to say, as far as parking and usage, I know so many people in Ridgefield who will not come to this library because there's no parking. If there's a program they want to go to, I say, well, why don't, I'll go with you, why don't you go? There's no place to park, I don't want to walk at night. Also, so that's a huge thing. If there's parking and there's this beautiful new building, hopefully we can get people in Clinton to go to the library and not go to Lancaster and not go to Bolton and not go to Shrewsbury. We take advantage of what we have, and I think that they'll do it. I mean, I don't think 59 parking places is a problem at all, especially in this day and age when people need to get somewhere. So I hope that everybody can see that this bigger, well, it might not be bigger square foot wise, but this bigger piece of land with this new building on it will be used.
Mr. Chair.
You build it, they'll come.
Is there a rough number on, cost per square foot for like a new build versus a renovation?
It would be unprofessional to give you a number on square footage. Well, each site's different. We have to do the due diligence. It would be unfair to lowball the number or highball the number. It's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, the range is.
You can have a range probably similar to what the school costs.
$1,000 a square foot.
$1,000 a square foot.
$1,000 a square foot.
If you
That,
wanna
that was
make-
total
that's-
project though, so that included demolition of the old building and that kind of stuff. So
It's just not it's not that simple.
No, but based upon the libraries that have been built or have been renovated, there's a number.
So libraries come in groups.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of a new grant round. The last grant round has ended a couple of years ago, and I don't need to tell anybody in this room that costs change every year.
Yeah.
I just don't, I don't wanna miss the mark. I'll give you to the penny when we come back. To the penny.
It's gonna be,
That's fine. Right in the
you
neighborhood.
know, renovating that is gonna cost very similar to what new buildings.
Yeah.
And it's not a cheap renovation.
No.
It's just really.
I think that what we're hearing tonight, which I think is no different than what we've discussed before, is that if the only thing you're trying to discuss is what is the best option for a library, it's clearly to build a new building, right? Like that's the only way that like from in a standalone decision of what's gonna give you the better library. That's gonna be the better library. It's no different than we tried looking at shoehorning a school into the old school, right? So the question is becomes, is that if we go down that path, which is fine, and then so we pick and we say, well, we're gonna go new, the decision is we're gonna go new. We do that, that then does have to get approved at the town meeting, right? And the very first question, it was really one of the only questions that was asked of me when we did the school project was, what's gonna happen to the old school? Now, in ours, it's the same site, so we were able to, it was included in there. So I do think that that needs to be just thought of. And then I do think, I forget who brought it up, but I mean, if we're willing to part with the building, I mean, I went through a building in the process of another community and we replaced 3 other buildings and we sold them all. So, I mean, there's a way of saying you can turn it from a liability into an asset if you're willing to do that, even if you get $1 for it, right? So I just think that people need to be aware of it, right? I mean, that's one of those things, like if the appetite isn't there for that, if people are gonna say, well, that's a historic building and it's been here forever and we don't wanna sell it, and then we gotta know that that's coming too. But I think it's hard to say you're gonna move offices, and I know I've toured it and looked, and there's been talking about school offices there and that kind of stuff. Not that that wouldn't work, but it's the same idea. The roof's still gonna need fixed, the heat's still gonna need fixed, the things are still, those costs are still there. So I think that, if there's an appetite to part with that building and just sell it, I think it makes sense to go with a new building.
Yes, just real quick, my name is John Vandernock, I'm new in town, I'm only here 10 years. But I am a member of the library. I think it's a beautiful building, and I think, honestly, there's been some changes in there from an architectural standpoint. The ceilings are beautiful, but they're ruined by the fluorescent lights that are up there.
Yes.
I think that building could be repurposed. I think it'd be a great museum, but if you're talking about a library, I think the Chestnut Street is the most cost-effective option. That's my opinion. Yes. Your things.
Carol Nolan, resident on Chestnut Street. I think it's essential, and I'm surprised it hasn't been done, a traffic study on Chestnut Street. The impact should be strongly considered, as part of the decision. So I feel like if you don't, make that study, that this decision won't be that fair.
Yeah,
I'm Lily Burmeister. I live off on Spalding Farm Road. Two quick points. One, if you renovate that building, all we're doing is kicking it down the road to do it 10, 15 years later, and we'll have no space to add addition. Second point, I think Becky Grace's point was completely missed, that if we renovate it, we go almost 2 years with no library in town.
Yes.
With regard to no library, you will have library services, you won't have full services. You are required to maintain library hours during construction, but it can be as light as, you know, order a book that will be waiting for you type thing.
It's not a full-time. Anyone?
Over here. My name is Jacob Evans. I'm a library trustee. I grew up in the town of Acton when they were redoing their library, which they went the option of taking their classical building, leaving it there, and then building an addition onto it, which was very long. The library services we had at the time were out of the old Ace Hardware that had gone out of business. They moved all the books and the computers into there, and that was the only thing accessible except for any of the school libraries. So it was a harder time. I grew up right down the street from the library, so I was like back there all the time. Having to head all the way over to the other side of town to go to some bad fluorescent lights overhead and lesser selection of books was a little difficult. But there would still be some services, just wouldn't be as good as right.
Yep.
Yep, I'm glad to have a public forum, and I'm glad to encourage you to speak.
Of course.
I very much would like to see a new library in Chestnut Street because of the issues already cited by so many people here. A better children's library, a teen center, which I think is crucial to this community. And I do think something has to be looked at in terms of the street at some point. Sometimes I see 18-wheelers come down to that street. And it's a good thing those stop signs have been put in. That has helped some. But people, I do think if we're accessing it, if people are walking with their children to a new library, there has to be some careful thinking about how they safely access from the street. So when somebody brought up the issue of sidewalks, that is concurred, even though you may not be there yet, I understand. We don't have the luxury of some of these communities where it's easy to build something else on the Walnut Street. That is not easy. So I think like so many people here, encourage us all to look at Chestnut Street site. And I assume you're just gonna move some of those trees because I think it goes back quite a ways from what you can see from the street. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, we'd have to cut all the trees and replant.
You also have a flagpole,
Yeah.
so I don't know how that was done.
We can take care of those.
There is a question like.
Down the back? Yes.
From staff here, I live in Ridgefield, Sturgill, and I'm with the Friends of the Library, so I spend a lot of time at the library. I just want to react to the designs, because I think the design is great. I love the idea of being able to close the library but keep the meeting spaces open at night. I love that there's an ample children. I go to other libraries where you have great kid spaces and spaces for young moms to come in with their kids and socialize. So I love that. The teen space is so important. So that's great too. And as a friend, a member of the Friends, I love the idea of having a Friends room, which is great too. But right now, I spend a lot of time in the lower level where the Friends do their work. And that one community room gets used for everything imaginable. And so definitely having more meeting spaces open day and night is really important, but I really like what we do these signs.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Naomi. I live right on Water Street. I really like the idea of the Chestnut Street
with the front and back entrance, especially for accessibility, so that you can come right in from your car, or come right in from the street. I think I like it even, I like it better than the Walnut Street side entrance that there would be. And I just think accessibility wise, this library has been, I'm a young mom, a real struggle for me with a stroller. Having to like try to wrestle my stroller like over like all the spaces, and then there's only a bathroom on the bottom floor, so changing a diaper has been hard because I have to then get my stroller down the elevator, go use the bathroom, go back up. I find that the idea of the 2 levels on the 4.2 option sounds just like a dream compared to the 3 level with all the different splits on the second Walnut Street option, and especially the first one as well. 2 levels just sounds so much more accessible in so many ways.
Right.
And better than the split level as well, because you come in and you're immediately reminded that, oh, I need to now take an elevator. Or, oh, I can't do the stairs. So for a split level, it feels more easily accessible because you can just say, okay, I'll park in back, I'll walk right in. Or, okay, we'll walk and park on the street and I'll walk right in, and you're at the level you need to be without any reminders of what you can and can't do, especially for accessibility.
I think the only problem is there isn't any parking in front of the building.
But around the Central Park, there's some parking spaces. And I also think that with the extra 59 spaces, it's not just library users who can use that, but on Old Home Day, on park days that they have the concert series, it is so hard to get to those events because there's just nothing close enough, you know? They fill up so fast.
But it's not, there's only a couple dozen, so it's still, people don't know. Yes, Maureen. I mean, sorry, Gloria.
I just want to, if I may, define some of the role of the trustees in all of this process. How many of you received a postcard in the mail? Yes. Now, this is only the start. This decision which site is the kickoff that will culminate in June of 2026, when, as Select Vote says, there will be a vote. The people will vote, and that will be based on the site, the cost, all the things we don't know yet. So this is the beginning of a long and very important and very active journey. So the trustees, as Marie, our fearless leader, the library director, if you'll tell Marie, the OPM over here, Dan, his company has a whole PR outreach, which we all work with, hence the postcard that you all got about this meeting. And the important part from this point on, as decisions begin to unfold, is that everyone's informed as it's happening, so there can be more discussions. So there are no surprises. And that's very, very important. And all the points that the select board have brought up is very important. And thank you for that. We have to come out with all the arguments that you expect, but it is a process and you will be informed. And we do ask you to be active in that process and sign up. It's all there on the library website. You want to know, get on to the mailing list, etc. So please, forward, wherever we're going, it's going to be great. We just don't know what the end of the story is, right? Yeah.
All right, I want to make sure everyone gets their points in. One more here.
Question, did any of these plans include an easy drive-up book drop?
We are not at that stage yet, to be honest with you. This one won't. This one will not. We haven't even discussed that yet. You know, that all will be part of the design process. We're really doing schematic floor plans right now. That's it.
Great question.
Yes, sir.
I know this is looking into the future, but I know Walnut Street, if we go Walnut Street, that's probably the end of any remodel. So seriously wants, my tinker with it. Is the Chestnut Street one capable in 20, 25 years from now, being able to expand a little bit?
So in a nutshell, yes.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to go build up or anything like that, because we're not gonna decide to take those below.
We put a ring,
You know,
an L on it,
Yeah.
extended back.
yes.
I was at the meeting the other night, I'm sorry, I was still a bit wrong. Just a resident here. I went to the open house at the library. I hate to say this, but it was the first time I was ever in there. And I was kind of taken aback. It just felt claustrophobic, little tiny spaces. And all I could think about was this would be a perfect office building. Because there were so many doorways and steps up and down. And I thought, this is perfect for offices. But I couldn't see it being renovated as a library. And when you presented that night, you said in the newer version, in the newer building, we would be able to move spaces around because it would be more open. Where if we were in the old library, you couldn't do that. You can't move walls, you can't change anything. It is what it is.
That's right.
So I think the newer library would be better as far as versatility. And another thing too is, I grew up in a town where we had a tiny little library and it was a storefront, literally. Nobody went there because it was dark, it was small. The town built a brand new library and that library was always packed with kids and people. So if you build it, they will.
Can't fit a baseball field.
It could though, I'm looking at that. I could use a baseball field if you got one.
In Main Street, so because you asked, I would be in favor of the construction if we move forward, but is anything coming off the tax rolls? Any large purchases, any building loans coming off in the next couple of years?
I don't believe there's anything big. There's some small stuff in the next few years, nothing substantial though. Nothing to this magnitude. Really, everything now is so much more expensive to do. You know, the old schools were built, you know, probably 10 cents on the dollar to what the new one is going for. So whatever comes off is not gonna be that big of an impact compared to, and this building wouldn't be nearly the impact that the school is gonna be, but it would certainly be an impact. Sure.
Okay, and then just for clarification, this isn't a school, so the town owns this building, right? So this is probably outside the purview of this meeting, but I'll say it anyways. It's not fair for the Board of Selectmen to put on the trustees to say what has to be done with a building when you guys have access to all the budgets, all the department needs, you would know what's needed to be done. Please don't go into town meeting suggesting that the library trustees decide what to do with a building that you own.
You're entitled to that opinion. My opinion is if they go into town meeting, because it's the building committee's job to build the building. It's the library board's job to sell this project at town meeting, along with the rest of you who are in favor. And I'm in favor of a library. My point is that if you go into town meeting advocating for a new library, and you don't have some concept to explain to the voters who are gonna be paying the bill, what will be done with that building. Sell it, if that's an opinion that you might have. But it's not, certainly not the Board of Selectmen's job to figure out what to do with the building you abandoned.
You own it.
No.
The voters at town meeting own it, and they assign it to any department that has it. The Board of Selectmen is only the custodians of abandoned buildings, vacant buildings.
So I want to ask the trustees, how much of the other department's budgets and needs do you guys see every year?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that?
In terms of what the town's needs are, budget wise, department wise, how many of those budgets do you see?
We only see those budgets at annual meeting. We see department things, but I'm going
He
to.
has access to every budget all the time.
Right.
I think Bill's point is more, if it doesn't pass the town meeting, you get needed.
I know those points, but I said is please don't put it on them and we go into town meeting.
I think it's gonna be having those distinctions as part of the budget.
Well, no, Mike.
I think the only
Anyways, Robert.
Yeah, I just, it was mentioned earlier that if you build across the street here, that we would impinge on the holder, which hasn't been brought up again, but I think that would be a big mistake. And I think obviously getting rid of parking right away, everybody's talked about how hard it is to park. I mean, all things being relative, having a lot of parking up there would be a big advantage. And I think those programs would probably have more attendance if everybody knew they had places to park their cars. But don't forget the hallway. That's a beautiful building. And they host a lot of programs there. And I think moving the building, which you have to do, close to the hallway would mistake aesthetically, to say the least.
Yes. Yeah. One second. Go ahead.
Tricia Kelly, I live over at Eastfields. I've been in Clinton for many years. For a small period of time, we were in Bolton. Raymond Bolton went to town meeting for the new library. People were not up in arms about what was going to be done with the old library that I don't even think came up. But my question would be, how do you think the people in Clinton would feel if they walked into a town meeting and the library trustees told them what was going to happen to a town building? I'd go through the roof. And wouldn't the select board come to that town meeting saying to the town, you are behind this or you're not behind it? Wouldn't you be giving your recommendation that you think this library is a good idea? Because it's all gonna be, it needs to be a little bit cohesive here. People who are paying for that building don't want, don't take this personally, but should the board of trustees of the library decide what happens to the town building? Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. But I think there's a level of, if I may, I agree, it is not our turn. We are elected to be on by you to represent your best interests for the library. I do actually, I'm coming back to this educative part of the program that were at the beginning. There will be a number of major pushes already scheduled in, and very similar. I can't tell you how grateful we are to the school superintendent. All the materials that he produced, I'm using that as for the middle school project, that whole model, we are committed to following, which means come next March, after the costing has been assessed, for whichever site it is, well, after the MBLC has said, this is what we're going to cost, this is what's cost, this is what we're going to give you, there will be a major publicity document, just like they did for the middle school, that will explain, if you do this, blah, blah, blah. If you don't do this, blah, 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 blah. I would suggest that point in March is when options for the use of this building, if it's gone to the new building, are laid out in detail. Not that anyone claims, we're not going to claim to do it, but there's nothing against us researching it and putting it out as educative materials. We are not claiming authority over the building, but we can say, if given that the decision is the new building, here are the various approaches to repurposing this building. And that's part of the educative process. It's not a yes and no right now, because you are correct. We are not the ones to say how can be repurposed. But we do have an educative role, I would suggest, just like you've got the postcards, everybody.
All right, David.
So, as an outsider and someone working on the library, it's not gonna knock wrong. Don't discount their position. It's a position that has to be weighed in the decision that the permanent building committee will make a decision. Whatever decision is made, we know that if the decision's to go new, we have some work to do between now and June. But they're correct, there's emotional value of the building. So don't take it out on the selectmen because they have a different point of view. Their views are valid, just as your views are valid. Everyone's in this room's views are valid. We're here to gather all of those views to help the permanent building committee make a decision on a direction to go. All the other parts and pieces eventually will fall into place.
When do you make your decision?
Very soon. Probably within a week or so. We'll talk about that after, not tonight.
Like a week?
Yeah, we're making this, we have to make it quickly. We've got a December deadline to have 80% or 70% schematic design up.
We have to do borings and surveys and a whole bunch of things on one side.
Traffic studies, all those sort of things that have to get done.
So before Tuesday.
Can I make one more point?
I don't know, we haven't set a meeting date, so.
Just one more.
All right, yeah, we do that.
I want to thank the library staff. This is an exceptional library staff. We know there's technology, we're big, big. And I think if we move forward the Chestnut Street, they will be very helpful and knowledgeable about a team. I think that more of an intergenerational facility and cannot do here at all. This staff is sophisticated and intelligent. Thank you.
Okay. Love
Can everybody restate their names again at the end of the meeting? I haven't really gotten to know everybody before, and so I'd just like to have names and faces.
Question, does the town own property that the other side is?
Yes, the town has full
Is
control.
there a program for the site, if the library doesn't have?
There's no use for that site right now. All right, so again, people, we have our permanent building committee, Steve Meyer, Larry Crosman, Chris Magliozzi, myself, and Chris McGowan, Mike Moran, Mike Ward, somewhere, who's our town administrator, who's on this committee, and one member missing is Brian Laurie. Then we have our library committee, if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Jacob Evans.
Gloria Parkinson.
Francisco Ramos.
Christina Gagliardi. Jill Ashton.
Then we have our construction or design team,
We have a lot of it.
Philip Ryan, Johnson Roberts.
and this is our illustrious select board.
Bill Quiley. Sean Kerrigan, 86 Orange Street.
Julie Bruce.
Matt Colvis.
Very good, thanks. All right, one more?
I guess I'm just a little bit confused. How is the final decision on the site? Like,
We're-
how does that be?
We're gonna get into our room, we're just gonna battle it out. We just vote, us seven will vote on the final decision.
So how did we influence your thinking?
Tune in next week. Well,
Come to
I think it's obvious that this room, this side of this room wants a new building. I mean, I think that's abundantly obvious. We have other things that we have to use to decide this, and, having a vacant building, there's costs associated with that. But, it's at the library's fault. It's not their fault that there's costs
Does
associated.
the vacant building regardless?
So we're,
Does the vacant lot cost anything right now? What do you do with that? You just have a vacant lot?
No, it doesn't cost us anything. There's no vacant ones. No.
But it also doesn't bring in.
It's not helping the town. No.
No, so it isn't.
All right, I'm hoping that we can wrap this thing up.
I'm sure that we'll pay and get all the rest of it.
The good part. Thank you.
Is there a
matrix?
matrix?
Oh. The Matrix.
The Matrix, do we get to see the Matrix? That's why I was raising my hand, I'm like, how's it?